Welcome to Lecture 10, Week 10, the first segment. We've looked at the system of transitivity and paid particular attention to process type. In this segment, I will explore the augmentation of process plus participants by means of circumstances. This is a system of circumstantiation, the circumstantial augmentation of the closed nucleus of process plus participants. We are still in the experiential clause grammar, experiential metafunction at clause rank, and still within the system of transitivity, but moving from process type to circumstantiation. Circumstantiation, as I said, is concerned with the circumstantial augmentation of the clause nucleus of process plus 1, 2, or up to 3 participants. So if we go back to the notion that the clause is a theory of our experience around and inside us, more specifically a way of modeling a quantum of change in our experience of the flow of events, as a figure, as a configuration of process plus participants, potentially augmented by circumstances, then we always have a choice. As we've seen, we have a choice, for example, whether we construe the quantum of the flow of events as two quanta of change, one clause followed by another clause related to it by projection or expansion, clause chaining, clauses forming clause complexes, as we'll see in another couple of weeks, or as a single clause, but very likely augmented by circumstances. Let me take an example from historical recount. In this clause, in 1791, John MacArthur arrived in Sydney as a member of the New South Wales Corps. There's one clause. So in our experience of the flow of events, the writers have construed this as a quantum of change, one chunk of experience as it were, with a combination of process plus one participant. John MacArthur arrived, and then circumstantial augmentation. And in fact, there are 3 circumstances here, construing different aspects of his arrival. The time, in 1791, which textually is given the status of theme, marked topical theme, which makes sense because this is a historical recount developed as a chronology. Another circumstance, a circumstance of place in Sydney, and a third circumstance of role as a member of the New South Wales Corps. So these all contribute to the construal of John MacArthur's arrival. John MacArthur arrived when? In 1791. Where? In Sydney. As what? As a member of the New South Wales Corps. So together, these 4 elements of transitivity constitute the clause as a figure, as a configuration. In the historical recount, this comes a few paragraphs into the text. The recount is the crossing of the Blue Mountains, and clause 12 is the one I used as an illustration. In 1791, John MacArthur arrived in Sydney as a member of the New South Wales Corps. Now, if you follow this through textually, you see that the thematization of the circumstance of location in time, circumstance of time, is motivated. Clause 1 starts with in May 1813, then a bit later you get in 3, after the arrival of the First Fleet in 1788. And by the time you come to 12, then you have established, or the writers have established, a chronological sequence. Here I've annotated the text just underlining circumstances. So you have in May 1813, that's circumstance of time. From Sydney, so circumstance of place, on a journey after the arrival of the first fleet, in the harsh conditions, gradually, at public stores, for other essential goods, on farms, in rations of food and rum, and then our example, in 1791, in Sydney, as a member of the New South Wales Corps, with ways to improve farming methods, successfully on his property near Sydney. Now, standing back, looking at the text like this, just annotated to identify the circumstances, you see there is a sprinkling of circumstances, several of time and place, some of manner. Not all clauses are augmented by circumstances. So in the second paragraph, only the first clause, 3, is circumstantially augmented after the arrival of the first fleet in 1788. In another couple of weeks, we will see that this is in fact a grammatical metaphor, as reconstruing what would be a clause of time after they arrived in, etc., or after the first fleet arrived in 1788, as if it was a circumstance. But the rest of paragraph 3, not circumstantially augmented. Similarly, paragraph 4, again in paragraph 9, and again in paragraph 5. But by no means all clauses. So it's in this sense that circumstances are optional, whereas participants are inherent in the process configuration. Now, how are the circumstances realized, expressed, coded? Well, either by prepositional phrases, preposition plus a normal group, in May 1813, from Sydney, on a journey which was to alter, etc., after, plus the arrival of the first fleet, and so on, or by adverbial groups. Adverbial groups are often have as the head of the adverbial group, in this case the representation of a circumstance, an ly adverb, gradually, successfully. But there are also adverbs that don't have this ly ending. They're not derived from adjectives, like today, tomorrow, forever. So back to our first example, clause 12. Let's just see how this is built up from the process plus a participant and then augmented by circumstances. So the very nucleus, or the sun, within our analogy of the solar system that I used before, is arrived, serving as process. And this is what it construes the change through time. Arrived, arrives or is arriving, will arrive, will be arriving, will have arrived, was arriving, was going to arrive, and so on. The process is realized by verbal group that, among other things, codes a choice of tense. Then there is one participant involved in this process, the arriver, or more generally the actor, John MacArthur. So this is a material clause with only one participant. So you have clause, nucleus, process plus participant. And then this is augmented circumstantially by a circumstance of time in 1791, in being the preposition, a circumstance of place in Sydney. And notice, incidentally, something you see when you do analysis of circumstances, that many prepositions that are originally spatial prepositions, location or extent in space, have also developed senses, uses as temporal prepositions, location in time or extent in time, duration. And then thirdly, a circumstance or role as a member of the New South Wales Corps. So these then are realized by a verbal group, the process, by a nominal group, the participant, and by prepositional phrases, in this case, the circumstances. Where we've seen circumstances may alternatively be realized by adverbial groups, and occasionally, we've already seen examples, by nominal groups without a preposition. Now, when we survey the full range of possible circumstances, so the full range of circumstantial augmentations, we find that they augment the clause nucleus according to a small number of different logical-semantic relations. Let me just present you with an overview, and we'll come back to discuss it in more detail. So the augmentation of the clause nucleus, process plus participants, by expansion or projection. So the augmentation may be expansion, elaborating, extending, or enhancing the clause nucleus. Elaborating it by indicating the role that one of the participants plays. Extending it by indicating an accompaniment to one of the participants taking part in the process. Like, I went to the concert with my umbrella. With my umbrella would be accompaniment. Or role, I went to the concert as a music critic. As a music critic would be role. And then a whole range of enhancing ones. Different kinds of cause and condition, including concession, reason, and purpose. The temporal and spatial ones, place, time, distance, duration, frequency, and a number of other ones, means, degree, quality. And then you have a small number of circumstances of projection. They relate either to a projecting mental or verbal clause or the content being projected. Circumstances of matter, a kind of gloss on the topic of the content, and angle, an indication of the projecting part. As I said, this is just an overview, and we'll meet them in more detail and be able to relate them to alternative augmentations of a clause by another full additional clause. Now, interestingly, when you look at these different types of circumstance, you'll find that they vary in frequency according to process type. So just very roughly, this represents different circumstance types around this radial diagram, and then the lines in the chart indicate different process types. And you can see that clauses of the material type are by far the most likely to be circumstantially augmented. And this includes location in space, place, location in time, cause, reason, manner, quality, manner, means, and accompaniment. And also role. There is one type of circumstance that is quite unusual with material clauses, but reasonably common with verbal clauses, and that's circumstances of matter. So, for example, regarding Henry, they told me blah blah, or they said to me about my old friend blah blah. Regarding, about, sometimes of, these are circumstances of matter, the topic, as it were, of the content of verbalization. And they can also occur in mental clauses, as you can see from this diagram. If I remove material clauses, then it's easier to see the frequency patterns for the less frequent process types. You see very clearly that matter is by far the most common with verbal and mental clauses. That role is common with verbal clauses, that overall location in space, in time, reason and quality, these circumstances are most likely to occur with relational clauses. Now this is then very quick overview of the characteristics or the range of circumstantial augmentations of the clause nucleus. Let me illustrate this in one more text. And this is a kind of narrative text. Circumstantial augmentation in the song Sunday Morning Coming Down, written by Chris Christopherson, but sung in the version we're looking at by Johnny Cash. I'll give you an analysis of this text with full lyrics and analysis of different aspects of the lyrics. Here, I've just in this table, I've just focused on the process plus circumstantial augmentations, and I've color-coded them. So you start at the very beginning of the song. Well, I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head. That didn't hurt. That doesn't sound too good, does it? I hope your Monday morning has been different from that. I woke up, that's a clause nucleus, process woke up, one participant I. And then two circumstantial augmentations. One, location in time, Sunday morning. And I've color-coded times here red, so you can quickly see the times. And one, manner, quality. How did you wake up? I woke up with no way to hold my head that didn't hurt. Okay. A bit later on, for example, I stumbled down the stairs, circumstance of place, color-coded in blue. So red means time, blue means place, and green means manner. And the only other circumstance type you have here is role. So I had one more for dessert. Okay, one more what? One more beer. As what? As dessert, for dessert. And you can see that the most common circumstantial types are spatial ones, locations in place. And that's because part of this story, the narrative, reflective narrative, is concerned with movements around the place. Waking up, then stumbling down the stairs, okay, walking across the street, seeing somebody in the park, stopping beside a Sunday school and so on. But notice that there is also one or two occurrences of abstract place, like it took me back to something that I'd lost somehow along the way. You can interpret this as a material clause, so something taking you back to a place, but this is in fact an abstract place, and you can say this is a way of construing memory. It reminded me of something that I lost. Okay. We'll discuss metaphors a bit later on. So Sunday morning, an example of time, down the stairs of place, and through my clothes of manner. How did you fumble in the closet? Through my clothes. So in this way, we can look through texts and we can sort the circumstances, the circumstantial augmentation, according to the different types, according to the nature of the relationships by which they augment the combination of process plus participants, the clause nucleus. Now I primed you for these circumstances. Have a listen to the song and listen specifically for the circumstance. You get a sense of how they contribute to the construal of experience of this poor fellow waking up with a hangover on Sunday morning, lonely, looking for a clean shirt, stumbling down to the outside world. So listen for time, place, manner, and role. And this is Johnny Cash performing Sunday Morning Coming Down, Chris Christopherson's song, 1970.
Well, I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head that didn't hurt. And the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one more for dessert. Then I fumbled in my closet through my clothes and found my cleanest dirty shirt. And then I washed my face and combed my hair and stumbled down the stairs to meet the day. On a Sunday morning sidewalk, I'm wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. 'Cause there's something in a Sunday this makes the body feel alone. And there's nothing short of dying that's half as lonesome as the sound of a sleeping city sidewalk and a Sunday morning coming down. In the park I saw a daddy with a laughing little girl that he was swinging. And then I stopped beside a Sunday school and listened to the song they were singing. Then I went on down the road, and somewhere far away a lonely bell was ringing. And it echoed through the canyon like a disappearing dream of yesterday. On a Sunday morning sidewalk, I'm wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. 'Cause there's something in a Sunday that makes a body feel alone. And there's nothing short of dying that's half as lonesome as the sound of a sleeping city sidewalk and Sunday morning coming down. Thank you very much.
Now, as I said, I hope your Monday morning hasn't been like this. Well, I hope your Sunday morning wasn't like that either. Next, I will return to process type and having provided a survey of the full system of process types, focusing on the major ones, and then giving you a preview or overview of circumstantial augmentation, I can return to the different process types in some more detail, attending to their grammatical properties and their uses in texts of different types, different registers or genres. Thank you.